It's 5 p.m. Your headlines. World leaders have expressed mixed reactions to the news that U.S. President Donald Trump and his wife Melania have contracted coronavirus. Some leaders sending their well wishes, while others highlighted that the virus does not discriminate. The 7 accused in the 255 million rand asbestos corruption matter will appear again in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court in the Free State on the 11th of next month. They have been released on bail. ANC MP Cedric Froelich has denied receiving any money from Bosasa as the company's former COO Angelo Grisi had alleged. The last hour of the show, you're watching SA Today here on SABC News. We're coming to you from Auckland Park. I'm Flo Letraba. All right, we begin with the story on everyone's lips this afternoon. World leaders have expressed mixed reactions to the news that U.S. President Donald Trump has contracted coronavirus. The 74-year-old statesman revealed via Twitter that he and his wife Melania had tested positive for the virus and were already in a 14-day self-isolation at home. Allies such as Indian President Narendi Modi and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have sent their well wishes. Others such as the European Council President Charles Michel used it to highlight that the virus doesn't discriminate. There are concerns around the fact that the U.S. President was in contact with many people over the past week, which could have serious implications. Trump, who has tested regularly for the virus, has held rallies with thousands of people in recent weeks in the run-up to next month's election, despite warnings from public health professionals against having events with large crowds. The First Lady, who often accompanies Trump on his campaign events, appeared with him at the recently concluded presidential debate in Ohio. Trump's positive test caps a months-long response to the virus, the seriousness of which he has consistently underplayed. Well, a short while ago, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows gave the media a quick update on the president.
Obviously, we had a great jobs report this morning, unemployment down below 8%, and the economy continues to be robust in its V-shaped recovery. And unfortunately, that's not what everybody's focused on this morning. As all of you know, the President and the First Lady tested positive for COVID-19. They remain in good spirits. The President does have mild symptoms, and as we look to try to make sure that not only his health and safety and welfare is good, we continue to look at that for all of the American people. He continues to be not only in good spirits but very energetic. We've talked a number of times this morning. I got the 5 or 6 things that he had tasked me to do, like I do every single morning, and he is certainly wanting to make sure that we stay engaged. I think the other thing that is critically important, the doctors continue to monitor both his health and the health of the First Lady. We'll continue to do that. They'll be glad to provide some updates.
All right, for more reaction now, we're joined by our correspondent in Washington, Nick Harper. A very good afternoon to you, Nick, and thank you for joining us, as always, here on SABC News. It does seem that Mark Meadows, the Chief of Staff there outside the White House, there at the White House lawns, kind of diverting attention or downplaying the situation. What do we know so far? You know, Mark Meadows is talking about the markers and not really wanting to dwell too much on the fact that President Donald Trump has tested positive for coronavirus. What else are you hearing at this time, Nick?
Well, Mark Meadows there, I think, very much trying to reassure everybody that the president is doing okay, that he is not incapacitated, that he is still in full control of the country. He used words like good spirits, very energetic, saying that the president is not only on the job, he will remain on the job. And I think that's very much the messaging that the White House is trying to put out at the moment, that yes, the president has tested positive, but he has mild symptoms and therefore is continuing work, even though he is self-isolating at the White House. There also appears to be some discussion within the White House today as to whether or not President Trump will give a prime-time address to the nation. That would certainly be something, if he was able to do it, that would help to reassure the public that he is still in control and has all of his faculties. It's something that's being discussed. It hasn't been finalised yet, but certainly it would chime with that message of reassurance, a message that the White House is very, very much looking to try and promote at this early stage.
And Nick, you do mention the fact that he's not incapacitated, and surely I'm sure he will want to speak to the public and address his country later on. But the fact is, and this is something that we spoke about with our correspondent in New York, Joan Bryce-Pease, the fact that this is someone who's in spring chicken. He's 74 years old. He's in that age group that, we have been told needs to be quite careful about the coronavirus, and a busy time, really, and a rather stressful time, I would assume, for President Trump, right in election season, right at the time that he is campaigning. And I really wonder about what might be the conversation, as you talk about conversations in the White House, what might be the conversation in the White House about him carrying on with this campaign, especially given the fact that he has to be on isolation for 14 days, and there's only really 30 days till elections. What are some of the conversations, or what you understand to be happening at this time, particularly from the Republican camp?
Well, look, the president loves holding rallies. He loves to get out in front of people. He gets buoyed by that. He loves to hear the cheering of the crowd. All of that is completely on pause, certainly for the next 2 weeks of isolation. It is a terrible blow to President Trump, and his campaign really couldn't come at a worse time. Like you say, just a month until that November 3rd election. He's already had to call off a rally in Florida, scheduled for later tonight, called off a rally in Wisconsin that's due to take place tomorrow. There would be other events that he would hope to attend in person that simply now cannot happen. One of them is also the second presidential debate with his challenger Joe Biden, which is due to take place in 13 days' time. There's a big question mark about whether or not that can even go ahead. So the White House, I guess, will now be scrambling to try and work out ways that the president can still engage with the public, can still get his message out, and can somehow still campaign, even though he's doing so from within the walls of the White House.
Now, Nick, I'm sure you're also, like many of us, taking a look at some of the reactions, whether it is from world leaders. I'm certainly taking a look at social media too. There's really been a lot of mixed reactions. His allies obviously sending their well wishes, and some who generally don't particularly like Trump, very much kind of using this opportunity to say, well, we kind of told you so. What are, those popular commentators, particularly in the States, and really the reactions that kind of stood out for you as the news kind of trickles in today in the US?
Well, as you point out, it's very much created that partisan messaging. People on the left saying one thing, people on the right saying a completely different thing. Well wishes coming in from politicians, including his rival Joe Biden. But I think perhaps leading that "I told you so" type commentary is the Democratic House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi. She said that it was a tragic event, but she said that it not wearing a mask and holding rallies was a brazen invitation for something like this to happen. And we're seeing lots of those sort of comments from Democrats out there on Twitter also saying that President Trump, by not wearing a mask, by holding these mass rallies, all the type of things that his own scientists were advising him for months not to do, he holds some responsibility. There is that "I told you so" type moment. So certainly very divided opinions, but there is some sympathy, particularly on the right, but on the left there's also some people just looking at this and saying essentially this was inevitable. The president was going to get COVID-19 at some point.
And I wonder, for those who have, been really been very supportive of President Donald Trump's stance on COVID-19, if they'll take this moment to kind of, reflect. I mean, you talk about the fact that there is some sympathy from the right, but I wonder, and as you look at what people are saying today, if there are some on the right who are going, geez, this is not our guy, hey? He'd said that he really kind of wasn't taking the coronavirus very seriously. And here we go, we have a situation with him and his wife contracting the virus. And I do wonder if those who had historically been on his side will kind of step back and go, this isn't the guy to listen to.
Well, certainly. I mean, there's such divided opinions. Even Republicans have not always followed the president and his type of messaging, the idea of not wearing masks, of attending rallies. There has become such a polarized, politicized event here in the United States over the last 6 or 7 months. Much of that, of course, very much taking place because it is an election year, and therefore it has become this political football that both sides have kicked around. The president, of course, throughout trying to downplay it, but also turn attention away from his handling of the virus. Him now catching it, of course, turns the spotlight very firmly back on coronavirus, the one thing that he was hoping to ignore. The fact that Mark Meadows came out this morning and the first thing he said was, "We had a great jobs report," I think highlights the fact that the White House and the Trump campaign is trying to turn the attention to other things, as they've done throughout this year, trying to turn it towards violent protesters, even though there's been peaceful anti-racism protesters around the United States, turning it away from COVID-19 and instead turning the attention towards the economy. They've tried to deflect, they've tried to prevaricate throughout, but I think President Trump now catching coronavirus will make it very, very difficult to move attention away from this topic. This will be the central issue now in the next 32 days before November the 3rd's election.
All right, Nick Harper, many thanks to you. We appreciate your time, and we'll certainly be catching up with you at a later stage as, of course, we get more news on Trump's condition. Thank you very much, Nick.